Welcome to Turn a Page, the official comic book club for Nerd Initiative. Each week, the NI Bullpen will be covering the world of comics, talking to creators, deep diving into some fantastic stories, and much more. Now let's hand it over to the team and turn a page.
Welcome to a very special edition of Turn a Page, the official comic book club for Nerd Initiative. My name is Ken M. You know me as the host of the ODPH podcast. I'm also Nerd Editor-in-Chief. To my left, you're right at home. He's the head of our wrestling division, but he's also one of our featured comic editors. Please give a warm welcome to Rich.
Hello, everybody. I am very happy to be here tonight. It's going to be a lot of fun talking about a wonderful franchise.
Yes, indeed.
And coming at you live direct straight from the ODPH studios, my name's Oscar Tom, Nerd Initiative's pop culture connoisseur. And with us tonight, we are talking with a fantastic writer about a fantastic book. You know her from such things as Supernatural, Jane the Virgin, the voice of Hawkgirl in Lego DC supervillains. She's been Mabel Dodson. She's done a whole bunch of stuff. But tonight we are talking about Masters of the Universe, Revolution and Revelation, the voice herself, Tiffany Smith, who voices ANDRA and is now the writer of the Dark Horse comic, Masters of the Universe, ANDRA. Tiffany, thank you so very much for joining us this evening.
Thank you so much for having me. My dog's gonna be hanging out with us for part of it, but
Absolutely. Perfect.
We got an extra special guest.
Love it. And this book is really a fantastic story. How did this whole transition now from the world of the animated series to the comic one shot come to be?
Well, first of all, thank you so much. I haven't actually gotten to talk to too many people who've read the book, so it feels really good to talk to people who've read it and like it. I mean, aside from obviously friends who are helping me edit and just go over everything along the way. But yeah, so we'd done 2 seasons of the show, and it was during the pandemic, I think, and I was on a Zoom with Rob David, who's an exec over at Mattel, and we were just chatting, and he's like, what other stuff do you want to do? And I was like, obviously, I love doing voiceover. I want to do more acting. I was like, I want to write a comic book at some point. And he was like, wait, you want to write a comic? And I was like, yeah, it's definitely on my bucket list. And he was like, well, have you thought about writing something for ANDRA? And I was like, I hadn't thought about it, but I would love that. So he's like, all right, we'll send over 1 page and we'll see what we can do. And so I came up with an idea, sent it over to Mattel, and Dark Horse went over it and they approved it. And now almost 2 years later, we've got a book out.
Amazing.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, now that we know how it all came about, time to, for maybe some people who don't know, who are on the fence, what is the book all about? What's the elevator pitch, if you will?
Yeah. So if you've watched the show, there's a little bit of stuff, but I feel like it's actually fine if you haven't watched the show, but it takes place between season 1 and season 2. ANDRA has just become the new Man-at-Arms. She has been one of Teela's very close friends. They were kind of doing their own thing for a while. And now that ANDRA has become Man-at-Arms, it really is this moment of taking on a new title and seeing if you can handle it and adjusting to basically like a promotion and from being somebody that does stuff in her own way, on her own all the time, to kind of having to work within this unit. And then we find out stuff about her past and her family. And because I think one of the biggest things about ANDRA is that she's looking for family. And so we get to actually know some of her family that she hasn't had a lot of time with, but also she gets even closer with her attorney and family too.
Now, as you mentioned, the first time we really met ANDRA was back in the original comic book series. And this one's a new-ish iteration, but both times we were both still being Teela's friend back from the Academy days. What did you really want to add in there to flesh out the character?
I think when I started to come up with an idea, it was really, I was lucky that I got to do 2 seasons of this character. So I kind of feel like I knew her really well. And I was like, what are some of the things that I would deal with in this situation? Because I remember when I went in for the first voiceover session, Kevin Smith was who was our creator, producer on the series. He basically said that ANDRA is you, but amplified. And so I was like, okay. So I got to have those moments of excitement, seeing He-Man and all this stuff in Eternia. So getting to write the book for this character, it was, what are things about me if I were in this situation that I would be struggling with or trying to go figure out on my own? And I think that's for almost anybody, where it's you work really hard at something, and sometimes there's moments where other people see you doing even bigger things than what you're already doing. And sometimes it takes time to actually get over that imposter syndrome and figure out how you're going to move into this role that the people who love you around you already see you in. So that was something that I really wanted to focus on with this character. And then I grew up watching the cartoon, and so I was so excited to then also get to bring in some of the other stuff that we didn't get to do in the show, where I was like, oh, I want to bring in some, like, the villain that we got to work with, and then the vehicles and stuff. So those were all things where it was like, the heart of it was, how do you deal with imposter syndrome, and how do you rely on people around you and not just do everything on your own? And then the other part of it was, what would young Tiffany want to do with her action figures with these characters?
Yeah, because I was going to say, now that ANDRA is synonymous with the name Tiffany Smith, how much of yourself is in the character, would you say now?
I mean, I think there's a lot of me and ANDRA, and a lot of ANDRA in me. It kind of goes both ways. I remember there was a session when we were recording, and they don't have the full animation done sometimes, but sometimes they'll have more stuff done than what you're voicing. And there was one moment where the animators, the Powerhouse, they had like done something with the character where I was like, that's how I stand when I was in voiceover. And I was like, wait, did you guys just watch what I was doing and have her do it? And they all kind of started laughing. They're like, yeah, we worked with you long enough. We kind of like, some of your embodiments have like gone into the character, which I thought was so cool. But yeah, I mean, a lot of it is my voice. You know, one of the things I learned about myself as a writer is that I like to voice record. So I kind of told the story out loud, and then I went to the computer and sat down and typed stuff out, because it was a lot harder for me to sit down, just start typing. So that's where I think, yeah, a lot of it is in who I am and in how I talk. And fortunately, ANDRA's voice is very much my voice.
Now, you've been playing in the Attorney and Sandbox for a bit. When you were writing, did you have any particular feedback from the powers that be, or, were they impressed with your Masters of the Universe knowledge?
I would say it was probably a little bit of, I would hope it's a little of both. There were, I think when we started talking, there was a conversation about some of the characters that they were excited to maybe have involved. And so that kind of helped me get a framework in where I was going to be in the space and the timeline. We knew that it was going to take place between season 1 and season 2, because obviously I didn't want to change anything that we got from season 1 or change anything that we got into season 2, but there was enough time in between that I could kind of play in that space. And then I think, when we were talking about stuff, they were like, oh, do you need any of the books or anything to kind of go to? And I was like, oh no, I already have the Master of the Universe encyclopedia, characters, vehicles, all that stuff. So I think that part, they were like, oh, great, she does know this stuff. But the great thing was, they kind of knew from the beginning that I am a Master of the Universe fan. There's a picture of me from grade school where I'd taken a Mermista action figure to school with me, and that was what's in my class photo. Like, my mom joked, she's like, you manifested this from a very young age that you were going to be doing something in this world.
That is awesome. So Count Marzo is a real deep cut. So what were other deep cuts or even Easter eggs that you were able to get in for the fanatic Masters of the Universe fans?
So Count Marzo for me I was so excited to get to play with this villain because, like you say, it's a deep cut, but also, there are a lot of different stories with him involved, and kind of the things that I wanted to play with was obviously the amulet and the fact that he ages when his power is drained. And so he was just really fun for me to explore and give more of a story to. And I love that when you're in Eternia, you get to play with magic and you get to play with the like tech side that ANDRA works with. Because sometimes when you're dealing with a villain, you're like, oh, how is he going to do this thing? And I'm like, he has magic, so we can use his magic. So that was really fun. And then some of the other little Easter eggs, there is one line that Marzo says that I'm a huge Lord of the Rings fan. So some of the villainous dialogue, there's one line in particular that pulls a little bit from Lord of the Rings. I'm not going to say which one it is because I want people to try and find it. And then the other thing that was, it's not necessarily an Easter egg, but for me, it was so much of the MOTU universe and fandom is about realizing that you have the power yourself. And so I kind of knew what the last page of the book was going to be from the very beginning, that I wanted this character that doesn't necessarily have magic to get to be in the position and say that I have the power thing. And so that was really the Easter egg for me, where it was like, how do I make this work? Because it's it's He-Man's line to say, you know, like, so I wanted to make sure that I stayed true to that, but also made that point really clear that everyone in this universe has the power to do something awesome.
Amazing. And you know, we know you're typically in front of the camera, or in Andra's case, behind the mic. What challenges do you have when being approached to write this book? Like, who is your sounding board that, you know, when you hit that Ethereum writer's block, if you will?
Yeah. Yeah. Um, I will say when I first started to write the book, we talked about me not writing it by myself, that I was going to possibly have a co-writer. And I went directly to Tim Sheridan, who everybody knows within the comic book world. And he also knows the MOTU world very well as well. And I will be forever thankful. And there's a special thank you to him in the book, because he was like, I'm not writing this with you. You're going to write it yourself. So I think having friends surrounding me who believed that I could do it even maybe before I could, which again, the writing of the book was so much kind of Andra's journey as well, because when I sat down the first time, I was like, I mean, there were definitely times where I called Tim and was like, I can't do this. I don't know what I'm doing. Like, this is going to be horrible. No one's going to like it. No one's going to read it. Like, what am I doing? So I feel very lucky that, you know, working for DC Comics and doing DC All Access and DC Daily and doing some stuff within the Marvel space, I've been pretty established and around the comic book world for such a long time that I had some really amazing writers to talk to. So I definitely got sent a bunch of scripts that people had done, so I could kind of see the framework of how different writers that I know write their comics. And then kind of take that and make it my own, like I said, doing the voice recording and then typing it out from there. But I had so many friends that I'm lucky to call and just be like, hey, I'm stuck. Can we talk this through out loud? And yeah, I mean, and just having the encouragement for them to say, no, you got this. I had one friend, which I'm like, thank God he didn't say this before, but I wrote the book and then I was like, it's done, the script's in. And he's like, I'm just going to tell you this now because I didn't want to tell you before. He's like, you chose the hardest medium to write in as your first like foray out in writing on your own. Cause I think the thing that so many people don't think about when you're reading a comic, if it's good, you don't notice all these things, but it's like making sure the page count is right, making sure the splash pages land on the right moment. Then also writing the script, but then paring it down because it can't necessarily be, you don't want it to be too wordy. And making sure that the art helps to tell that story. So you can take out some of the dialogue places if you have the art that works to tell the story as well. So it really is kind of writing and directing and doing a puzzle and putting in, I call them, I'm like, they're like commercial breaks when you do a page turn. And then if you add something or take something out, you're like, oh no, the splash pages moved. Now I have to add something else. And that doesn't just feel like extra to get the page turn where you want it to be. So I'm so proud that this book is out, and I'm like, I still look at it and I'm like, I kind of can't believe that I wrote this, but I did.
Yeah, it did, and like I say, it's a great addition to the history of Eternia, and there's so much more involved in this book too. Like, I can't wait for more fans to get this word of mouth, and they're really going to be just enjoying this from page one to finish.
Thank you.
Now, you mentioned that, you know, the story takes place between seasons 1 and 2. Did you find that as a help or a hindrance? Did you feel like, you know, kind of being painted in a corner was a good thing, or, you know, or a bad thing?
I mean, I think for me, it helped because I knew where we were starting and I knew where we had to get to. So it gave me kind of these tracks to stay within, which I think helped a lot, especially for it being my first book. And because, you know, there's so much in this world that I wanted to honor and that I didn't want to do things that were not Masters of the Universe. You know, I didn't want to do things that were so out of the realm of this world, but also I wanted to tell a story that was my own. So I think having those boundaries at the start and the end helped me a lot, because I always was like, okay, well, I'm not going to do something that's going to change the world so much, but I do need to show where the end of season 1, we see her becoming Man-at-Arms, and then season 2, you see her come in and she's established. She's like kind of a badass when she comes in. I mean, she's always a badass the whole time,
Yeah.
But when she comes in season 2, it's even more like there's more confidence there. There's more of a, I am Man-at-Arms. And there are still some things obviously in season 2 where she's still trying to figure things out, as we all do in life. But I knew that I was like, how do I get her to that place where there's more confidence in who she is and in this role that she's gotten given. She's been given. Gotten given? What's that?
We're down with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
Last
Friday.
last time you were on here on Nerd Initiative, you said, and I quote, and I'm going to take this from your own personal
Oh
journey,
gosh.
and I
Okay.
quote, that you're He-Man, She-Ra, Wonder Woman, Princess of Power to now. What has that meant to you?
Um, I think it's something that has always stayed with me, that always will. Jokes aside, like my sister and I used to say that all the time when we were little. We'd run around and just take on all these roles and say we were all of these characters. And I think that as an adult, I've taken that way to heart where I'm like, I want to play so many characters. I want to be so many things. I think the other part of it that if I want to get like really heady about it is that we all have so many different aspects of ourselves. And so it's cool that even as a kid, I kind of understood that I was like, there's so many aspects of myself that I want to play with and explore. And that I get to do that as a career is incredible. And I feel so lucky that that's, the world that I constantly pinch myself that I'm like, I wrote a Masters of the Universe book. I got to put He-Man in here. Like, I get to work with some people that I've looked up to so much, and hopefully that will continue as my career goes on. And just reminding myself that the stuff I get to do is, even though yes, it's work, and there were moments where it was hard, just reminding myself to enjoy it along the way and enjoy exploring all these different layers of myself.
That's awesome. And you have been on quite a great journey. And with that awesome journey, if you could go back and tell little Tiffany about the journey she's about to go on, what would be the biggest bit of advice you could offer?
Gosh, I think the biggest piece of advice that I would give myself is to enjoy it while it's happening. Because I think I was literally just talking to a friend today where she was like, I'm so proud of you. You're doing so much great things. And I was like, yeah, but I'm not where I want to be yet. Like, I want to keep going. And it was one of those reminders where it's like, sometimes you have to go outside of yourself and look at all the things you've accomplished to really appreciate where you're at. Because I think when anybody is an ambitious person or you're a creative and you want to keep creating, it's like there's always another tent pole to reach. There's always another thing to be reaching for. So I think I would just remind myself to enjoy where you're at and be proud of the things you've accomplished and be excited about what's to come, but don't constantly be looking at what's ahead all the time.
Now, you have a very unique perspective, being on both sides as a fan and part of the creative process. What do you think it is that keeps this 40-plus-year-old franchise going? What makes Masters of the Universe and ANDRA timeless?
I mean, I grew up watching the cartoon, like I said, and even though we didn't get to do it necessarily so much on our seasons, the Orko stuff at the end of every episode where it was a lesson learning, like a learning lesson for people, or He-Man saying like, this is what you could learn today. So I think that's a big piece of it, where this is something that like you can learn from and you can become a better person from. But also there's the part of it where it's like everyone wants to be a superhero. Everyone wants to have the power and have those moments where they're the hero of the story. And so I think that's something where it's kind of like, oh, you get to see Prince Adam and he's just this guy who doesn't seem like he could do all these incredible things, but he really does still have it inside of him. With the sword, he has the power. And so I think that's part of it. And then obviously like the fun and the joy of it. There's just something that's so fun and playful about the world of Masters of the Universe. For me, the jokes that we get to do, the heart that's in there mixed in with that. I think that that's what kind of keeps it going all the time, where it's like you can tell these stories that have so much heart, but there's still play and lightness to them as well.
Yeah, and I think that especially, the more creativity that comes with these characters now as they're expanding out in books like ANDRA, this is where you can kind of really connect with a new audience. And especially now in the comic world, we're seeing a lot of crossovers pop up lately. I mean, we've had Deadpool, Batman. One of my personal favorites right now is Archie versus Minor Threats by Dark Horse. I think that book is amazing. If there was a dream crossover, since you're now dabbling into the world of comics writing, that you could cross over ANDRA with anybody, any franchise, anywhere, who would it be and why?
I mean, that's really hard. There's two that jump to mind just because I'm like, well, within Dark Horse, I'm like doing something with Magic the Gathering or D&D with ANDRA, and her suit and everything, because I think there's like vehicles and mech and stuff. I play Magic the Gathering in that space, that would be really cool to kind of blend those worlds. But we actually did a panel at San Diego Comic-Con and had some of the creators for Monster High on. And I was like, because of the fact that she is this teaching cadets in this issue. I was like, it would be so fun if she was like a TA that came in and taught something at Monster High. That would be a really fun space to be in, I think, too.
I could see ANDRA hanging out in the worlds of Mirrodin, just saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's so like, this is literally, it's like when you ask that question, it's like when I was little and you would take all your action figures and toys and mash them all up, where you're like, okay, well, Barbie's hanging out with this character with ANDRA, and then He-Man's there and She-Ra, and you know, it's G.I. Joe thrown in. And so, yeah, I mean, that, like I said, that's a hard one, but those are the two that come to mind immediately. I mean, she'd be freaking awesome with Iron Man too.
Yeah, that was. Oh, I was thinking something along that lines too. But no matter where you plug and play, like she's an engaging character enough that you could just make any story happen with her.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think there's always something cool where it's like you always need somebody that's great with the tech, and she's so strong with that stuff. So that's where it's like I think that would be fun to kind of have her in the world of technology, where Tony Stark definitely jumps to mind now too.
I think that's a really good idea. I like that. Let's make it happen. But Tiffany, we can't thank you enough for coming back on. We had a pleasure having you on back in March during our March Madness, surprising Mickey, because trust me, that was fantastic. And we can't say enough that you need to go out and get this book from Dark Horse Comics. As a matter of fact, that was my pick of the week this past week. So make sure you go check out our review on Nerd Initiative for that. Tiffany, thank you so very much for taking the time out. And just everybody, we highly recommend that you go out, pick up this book. So we're going to end it like we always do. And when you're at the comic book shop and you see somebody going through the shelves and they don't know exactly what to get, and you happen to see Masters of the Universe ANDRA sitting there, pick one up, hand it over, tell them to turn the page. And I'm out.
It's such waste of time, swiping left and swiping right on people you could know. 'Cause anyone who's worth a damn be worth way more than a picture could ever show. You could find the right light, find the right angle, and never find your soul. And it can feel like a losing battle, and this plot is full of holes. This modern way of finding love just makes me feel so alone. And I can't be the only one sick of staring at my phone. So look up, talk to me, a better way to spend our energy. Just look up, talk to me. We don't have to float alone on the open sea. Don't know that I believe in the old-time fable. Everyone has just one true love. All I know is you're across this table, and you're all I'm thinking of. So look up, talk to me, a better way to spend our energy. Just look up, talk to me. We don't have to float alone on the open sea. Talk to me. Talk to me. It's such waste of time, swiping left and swiping right on people you could know.